Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And welcome to the Reaver of Common Sense. I am your host, Jersey Joe, right here on SHR Media, Conservative Media Done Right. Let's say common sense is a superpower these days because it is so rare. But on this show, it's the standard. We don't care about the feelings of the permanent political class, and we certainly don't care about the approved narrative being fed to you by the corporate legacy media. Tonight, we're tearing into the absolute desperation of the left-wing establishment that is losing its grip on reality. We're talking about a media landscape where a sleeping audience watching 2 a.m. reruns on Fox is bigger than the entire live circus over at CNN. We're looking at the math that shows American people are moving towards results, even while the squad in D.C. calls to dismantle the very departments that keep our borders secure. And most importantly, we're going to talk about accountability from manufacturers' sock puppet psyops on social media to the radical activists in Florida who encouraged kids to walk out of school and into the path of oncoming traffic. The bill is finally coming due. Because when the narrative collapses, behavior gets exposed. When ratings fall, panic sets in. And when activists push rhetoric that spills into real-world consequences, someone eventually has to answer for it. The show is about connecting those dots. It's about tracing the lines from studio spin to street-level fallout, from online manipulation to policy dysfunction. That excuse, they are just running out. The contradictions are stacking up, and tonight we're putting all of it under the spotlight. I'm your host, and it's time to cut through the noise, expose the nonsense, and let the truth live where the lies go to die. Buckle up, the Reaver of Common Sense starts now. I want to thank everybody for being here, everyone that's tuning in to listen, everybody that's in chat. I want to thank you for coming and joining in. All I ask is respect the moderators, respect the chat, and be an adult. That's all. But don't forget, the SH Media merch is here, and it's built for people who refuse to sit quietly while the nonsense runs wild. From bold logo tees to gear that makes a statement without saying a word, this isn't just merch, it's a signal. You stand for freedom of speech. You stand for accountability. You stand where truth lives. Every purchase helps fuel independent journalism, power the show, and keep SHR Media growing without corporate strings attached. Wear it, share it, live it. Grab your SHR Media merch today and represent common sense wherever you go. But before we go any further, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and share the stream like your freedom depends on it, because it just might. Every click helps us punch through big tech censorship, drown out the media noise, and make sure common sense has a fighting chance. Now, the story I came across literally while I was sitting here waiting to go on air, and it kind of made me chuckle. It's not a good story exactly, but it still made me chuckle because I know majority of you have fantasized about doing this. It's not right what the guy did, but everybody's pretty much fantasized about this. And it's the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office has arrested a man for shooting a door-to-door solicitor in his neighborhood. On February 18, 2026 at 8 p.m., Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department deputies responded to a reported shooting where they found a male victim with multiple gunshot wounds to his lower body. Detectives determined the victim and his female co-worker were going door to door selling telecommunication services when the attacker became verbally aggressive towards the female and then physically attacked the victim as they walked away. During the attack, the shooter pulled a firearm from his waistband and shot the victim. He then went back to his home, and when deputies arrived, he came outside armed and was taken into custody. He's lucky he's still alive if he came out armed. I will say that. But tell me, there's not a single one of you that would not have wanted to do that same thing to these door-to-door solicitors. Tell me. Everybody has fantasized. It's not right to do. I know that. I'm not justifying what the guy did, but it just made me snicker. It really did. And then there was another article that came across pretty right before, so I threw it in. New Jersey's just this new governor. I don't even know how to explain her. All right, California made a federal mask ban on law enforcement. Ninth Circuit Court already smacked it down, said you can't do that. Supremacy clause, yada, yada, yada. You can't do that. New Jersey files suits. They're now pushing a federal law enforcement mask ban, but they've one-upped it now. And just when you think the radical left has reached the ceiling of absurdity, New Jersey finds a way to break through it. There's a new plan being pushed in the Garden State that would effectively blacklist ICE agents, banning them from holding any public job in New Jersey for the rest of their lives. However, buried in the fine print is a telling detail. The bill would lift the employment ban for ICE agents hired after January 2029. Corresponding to the date when the Trump administration is scheduled to end. In other words, the punishment is not about the badge. It is about the political timing. That little bit exposes exactly what this is. Politically targeted restrictions disguised as policy reform. And it doesn't stop there. Lawmakers are advancing A4300, a bill that would impose a 50% tax on the gross receipts of private detention facilities operating under government contracts, with the money directed to a newly created Immigrant Protection Fund. For those that don't know, New Jersey has been dipping into the pension fund. Big time for the last several years. And their bright idea, instead of paying the pensions back, they're going to create a immigrant protection fund so that illegal aliens have money to hire lawyers or whatever else they're putting this together for. So they're taking money from state workers that have paid their money into the pension. Their money that they paid into the pension. They're taking it out to pay bills. The state is. Then they're taking money and using it to protect people who broke the law. That is not a regulatory oversight. That is a financial squeeze designed to make participation in federal immigration enforcement economically unsustainable. Excuse me. Now, I want to see that go through. I want to see that bill go through because I want to watch that get slapped so fast in court. And this has nothing to do with left versus right. This has to do with common sense and just putting laws in because they're upset. Because they lost the election. And that's all this is. And what's funny is when you listen to the Democrats right now, if you pay attention to the way they're talking, they're making that turn away from open borders, away from the illegal aliens. And now they're starting to talk about how, yeah, we failed. We need to have a secure border. We need to do this. they're going to still try to protect the illegals that are here. But what they're doing is they see they've lost elections. They see that the majority of the country wants a secure border. They don't want illegals walking in. So they're going to slowly make that turn to try to cover up, to try to lie to you and tell you how they're so for a secure border. But then you get bills like this that are just all about emotion. And it's not going to be illegal. It's not going to be held up. It's discriminating against these people, period. But then there is also the A4301, which would make it a criminal offense for anyone, including federal ICE officers, to block state, county, or municipal law enforcement from accessing crime scenes or evidence. On its face, it is framed as cooperation. In practice, it sets up potential criminal liability conflicts between federal agents executing federal duties and local authorities asserting jurisdiction. Again, they do not have the right to do this. Yes, states are independent, but there is the supremacy law. They cannot write any law that overwrites a federal. But let's apply some common sense to this. We are talking about federal law enforcement officers, men and women who have passed background checks, completed rigorous training, and spent their careers enforcing the law of this country. New Jersey's response? To treat them like they have a criminal record. They want to bar them from being police officers, teachers, or even a local clerk simply because they did the job a federal government hired them to do. This isn't about policy. It is about pure, unadulterated spite. It is an attempt to intimidate federal agents and make the cost of enforcing our immigration laws so high that nobody will want to do it. They are literally trying to punish people for their service to this country. But here's the reality check. While New Jersey politicians try to build a wall around public employment to keep law enforcement out, the rest of the country is looking at a 50% approval rating, demanding more security, not less. It's a desperate move by a state government that it's lost its way. And you could bet the legal challenges to this unconstitutional nonsense are already being drafted. It's an insult to every person who wears a uniform. And it's a perfect example of why the common sense majority is done with these radical games. There is also constitutional questions hanging over this proposal. States do not have unlimited authority to penalize individuals for lawful federal service. When a state attempts to blacklist federal officers simply for executing federal law, it collides with longstanding principles of federal supremacy. That is not a small legal hurdle. It is a direct challenge to the structure of our republic. Beyond the courtroom, consider the precedent this sets. If one state can permanently bar federal agents from public employment because it dislikes the policies they enforce, what stops another state from doing the same to agents who investigated corruption, narcotics trafficking, or civil rights violations? Governance cannot function if political disagreement becomes grounds for professional exile. There's also a chilling effect built into the strategy. The message to current agents is unmistakable. Enforce the law today, and you may be unemployable tomorrow. That is not reform. That's blackmail through career intimidation. It attempts to influence federal enforcement priorities indirectly by threatening personal livelihoods. Ultimately, this move reveals a deeper divide. One side views immigration enforcement as a legitimate function of sovereign government, even if debate is debated in scope and method. The other treats participation in that function as moral disqualification. When policies disagreements escalate into lifetime bans and professional blacklists, the conversation has shifted from reform to retribution, and voters are paying attention to this. Damn, I don't know why I sound a little hoarse. If you want to know how far the progressive brand has fallen, look no further than the New York Times. When the paper of record for the left starts calling out AOC, you know the disaster is undeniable. AOC took her show on the road to Germany, and the videos coming out of that trip are so bad, they have triggered an official critique from the Times. We're talking about a complete lack of self-awareness and a message that isn't just failing here at home, it's being laughed at abroad. It's one thing to have your common sense reaved by a show like this, but when the other cheerleaders at the New York Times start pointing out that the emperor has no clothes, the act is officially over. But the deeper issue is messaging discipline. When political figures travel overseas, every appearance becomes a reflection not just of personal brand, but of national credibility. International stages magnify missteps because they are no longer filtered through partisan loyalty or domestic spin. Additionally, optics abroad often influence perception at home. Voters may disagree on ideology, yet they expect elected officials to project competence and seriousness on a global stage. When clips circulate that suggest theatrics over substance, that expectation erodes. There is also the strategic risk of overexposure. Media-heavy figures thrive on constant visibility, but saturation can turn charisma into downright appalling behavior. The more appearances that generate awkward headlines, the harder it becomes to control the narrative. Furthermore, criticism from traditional friendly outlets changes the calculus. It signals that the concern is not purely ideologically opposition, but performance-based evaluation. That distinction matters because it broadens the audiences willing to question the direction of the brand. In politics, perception compounds quickly. A single stumble can be dismissed. A pattern invites reassessment. When international optics, domestic skepticism, and media fatigue converge, the conversation shifts from expansion to damage control. That is rarely where movement wants to be. It wasn't one flub. It wasn't just AOC. There was multiple flubs. AOC, Gavin Newsom, both of them look like blubbering idiots. I'm trying to be nice here, just calling them blubbering idiots, because that's what they sounded like. They ran their mouths and did not seem to know what they were talking about. How much it hurt them for 2028, time will tell. We still got, 3 years, roughly, give or take a couple months. That's an eternity in the politics. And we're just getting started, folks. This is the anatomy of a modern political warfare, and we're only peeling back the first layer. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this brief message.
Come listen to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show. Live on select and exclusive Tuesday and Thursday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Rumble channel, SHR Media YouTube channel, X, Twitch, Spreaker, and wherever great conservative podcasts are found. BZ, your conservative Sherpa, guides you through the maelstrom of Democrat, leftist, and globalist lies, chaos, deceit, and betrayal. Raised as a free-range child with dirt, stains, mud, and freedom, BZ broadcasts from North Idaho, comfortably surrounded by actual normal people. Jump into our plush, sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent chat room on rumble.com. Click on live chat to join. Now, with 37% more umbrage and 19% more bulbosity than previous shows, featuring delicious Liberty additives for the best in late-night conservatarian talk radio. BZ reminds you that with great beard comes great responsibility. No chinchillas were harmed, embarrassed, fat-shamed, or the focus of any sarcasm whatsoever in the making of this ad.
Are you looking for a way to boldly express your faith and love for your country? And check out Seven Armors, the premier apparel company for patriotic men of God, where faith meets freedom in style. Our t-shirts are more than just clothing, they're statements. Bold, stylish, and meaningful. From timeless messages to modern designs, we've got something for every patriotic man of God. Wear your beliefs proudly with Seven Armors gear. Don't miss the chance to wear your faith and freedom on your sleeve. Visit 7armors.com today and join the movement. That's the number 7armors.com.
Hey, where do you go when you want real conversation and topics? That's right, you step to the edge. The Edge of Liberty is your home for talk radio the way it was meant to be. I'll be live every Monday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network, and we're simulcast on KLRN Radio. We're building something different, Aaron. We just want you to be a part of it. I'll see you on the edge.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And welcome back to the Reaver of Common Sense. I'm your host, Jersey Joe, here to make sense out of the senseless right here on SHR Media, conservative media done right. Before we go any further, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and share the stream like your freedom depends on it, because it just might. Every click helps us punch through big tech censorship, drown out the media noise, and make sure common sense has a fighting chance. Don't forget the SHR Media merch is here, and it is built for people who refuse to sit quietly while the nonsense runs wild. Go to shrmedia.com to get your merchandise. From a bold logo tees to gear that makes a statement without saying a word, this isn't just merch, it's a signal. You stand for free speech. You stand for accountability, and you stand where truth lives. We have a limited edition 250 reasons source document 250-year anniversary of the country t-shirt. This is a limited edition t-shirt. Get it now while you can. Wear it, share it, live it. Grab the SHR Media today and represent common sense wherever you go. Again, I want to thank everybody that's here watching, listening. If you're in the chat room, if you're not in the chat room, you should get in there and join the conversation. Just go to YouTube, search SHR Media, and jump into the chat room. Just be respectful. I want to thank the mods. I want to thank everybody that's there, whether you agree, disagree, like, or even hate me. Thank you for being here. So, where were we? Oh, we're going to talk about CNN right now. And let's start with a little reality check for the most trusted name in news. You know, they say the truth hurts, but for CNN, the ratings hurt even more. Get a load of this. Recent data is showing that reruns, let me repeat that, okay? Reruns of Hannity airing at 2 in the morning, that's 2 a.m. on Fox News, are pulling in more viewers than almost anything CNN is putting out there in their live daytime or prime time slot. I just want to let that sink in for a second. Sorry, I'm thirsty as hell. Oh, had a big workout before coming on the air. Whew. Sweated my fat ass off is what I did. So let's go over that again real quick. Not the fat ass part, but the reruns of Hannity at 2 a.m. are pulling in more viewers than CNN live daytime or CNN prime time slots. Think about the sheer embarrassment of that for a second. You've got a building full of high-priced anchors, makeup artists, and expert panels in New York City and D.C., all screaming into the void in the middle of the day. And they're getting absolutely smoked by a guy who is literally at home, asleep, while his show from 4 hours ago plays on a loop. This isn't just a win for Fox. It's a total systematic rejection of the CNN brand. People would rather watch Sean Hannity talk about yesterday's news in the middle of the night than listen to CNN try to spin today's reality. Common sense tells you that if your product was good, people would watch it. But when the graveyard shift at a rival network is beating your flagship programming, you aren't a news organization anymore. You're a ghost town. CNN spent years building a business model on hating one man. And now that the dust has settled, they've realized they forgot to build an actual audience. Meanwhile, they spent less time worrying about threats to democracy and more time reporting on things people actually care about. They wouldn't be losing to a digital recording at 2 a.m. But hey, that would require common sense, wouldn't it? And that's it. For those that don't know, the name of the show here is Reaver of Common Sense. Reavers were ancient Greek, I believe it was, bringers of the death of common sense. And that's what we have in this modern world. People don't have common sense anymore because a book tells them what to think, what to do. They don't have common sense anymore. And CNN is proving it time and time again. And here's the part they don't want to admit. This isn't a 1-week fluke or a bad news cycle. This is a pattern when audiences consistently choose a replay over your live production that tells you something fundamentally has broken. Viewers are not confused. They are making a conscious choice about who they trust. For years, CNN positioned itself as the referee of American politics. They framed themselves as the adults in the room, the guardians of fact, the voice of reason. But when you abandon straight reporting in favor of panel-driven outrage and narrative reinforcement, people eventually tune out. Lectures don't build loyalty. Information does. And I'm not in the chat room, but I can bet you if it's not in this chat, there's someone somewhere. Yeah, but Fox got sued for 2020. Fox got sued and lost. CNN has gotten sued multiple times. CNN has lost millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. MSNBC/MS Now has gotten sued multiple times. MSNBC has lost millions and millions and tens of millions of dollars. But you never hear about it. They only tell you about Fox. I'm not a fan of Fox. I don't dislike them. I don't even have cable in my house. I don't watch cable. I don't watch CNN. I don't watch Fox. I don't watch MSN. They're news agencies. They're corporations. Corporations are out to make money. How do they make money? They need viewers. How do they need viewers? They got to be flashy. They got to be bold statements. So it's all of them across the board. But I do find it funny. I remember a time when CNN was really getting picked on. You can't pick on the news. You can't say nothing bad about the news. Now all you hear is, oh, Fox News, Fox News, Fox News. Like it's some scapegoat. No, it makes you sound like a fucking retard when you go, oh, that came from Fox News. because CNN told you. It can go both ways. You have a little rejects. It just. But when your news station that you're all clamoring about is losing to a rerun at 2:00 in the morning, that tells you everything you need to know about that broadcast. What makes this even more striking is the resource imbalance. CNN has global bureaus, massive corporate backing, and near unlimited production capability. Meanwhile, a single pre-recorded show airing in the middle of the night is outperforming that machine. That's not just embarrassing. It is a strategic failure at the executive level. That market does not lie. Ratings are not partisan. They are behavioral. People spend their time where they feel informed and entertained. If your competitors are winning at 2 a.m., then your 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. programming is not connecting. No amount of branding, no amount of slogans can fix that. And let's be clear, this is about more than cable news drama. Media credibility shapes national conversations. When a major network loses the public's confidence, it weakens its ability to influence policy debate, elections, public opinions. Influences follows audience. Audience follows trust. So the bigger question isn't why Hannity reruns are winning. The bigger question is why CNN hasn't adjusted. If the warning lights are flashing and leadership keeps doubling down on the same formula, DNC, then the graveyard shift comparison wouldn't be a punchline. It will be the epitaph. Now, we're going to change subjects, change the gears up a little bit. Now, while the corporate media is busy counting the empty seats in their own studio, let's look at some numbers that actually mean something. It is being reported that one of the most accurate pollster from the 2024 cycle just dropped their latest data. And it's a massive reality check for the resistance. President Trump has hit 50% approval. Now, why does that number matter? Because if you listen to the talking heads on the other channels, they'll have you believe the entire country is in a state of perpetual outrage. They want you to think the policies being rolled out are universally hated. But the math doesn't lie. Hitting 50% in this polarized, divided climate, especially with a media that spends 24/7 telling you to tank your numbers, is like running a marathon with a lead vest on and still winning by a mile. It shows that despite the noise, despite the sock puppet operations we're going to talk about later, the American people are seeing results. Whether it's the border, the economy, or just the fact that we finally have someone willing to prioritize common sense over political correctness. The message is getting through. The silent majority isn't just silent anymore. They're becoming a verified majority. But here's what really shifts the narrative. 50% is not a ceiling. In modern politics, especially in a hyper-factual media environment, breaking that mark signals durability. It suggests that support is not just collapsing under scrutiny, it is consolidating. Poll numbers also tell you something about intensity. When approval climbs despite nonstop negative coverage, it indicates that voters are filtering information differently. They are weighing outcomes over headlines. They are measuring results over rhetoric. Additionally, this milestone undercuts the constant drumbeat that administration is politically isolated. Isolation does not look like half the country approving of your direction. Isolation does not like numbers holding steady in the face of coordinated opposition messaging. Critics can argue methodology, timing, or sample size, and that is a debate is fair. However, dismissing the number outright ignores a broadened pattern. The electorate appears less reactive to media narratives and more focused on tangible impact in their daily lives, such as gas being cheaper, rent getting cheaper, housing getting cheaper, everyday life getting cheaper. Eggs, since they love to talk about eggs when you first get in office, have dropped dramatically. Groceries across the board have been going down. Energy costs going down. People are spending more money. People have more money to spend. And that is why 50% mark matters beyond the headline. It reframes the political battlefield. It signals that the so-called backlash is not as universal as advertised. And it forces opponents to confront a harder truth. A divided country does not automatically mean a losing presidency. So next time you see a breaking news report about how the administration is losing support, just remember, 50% of the country is standing firm. And in today's world, that's not just a statistic. That's a mandate. And when you look at other numbers, he's up with Latinos. He has a pretty good support and approval with the black community. Republicans are approving at 92, 96%. He is not losing support. And if I have time, we have an article to talk about that, because Brian Craston on X has exposed himself and exposed the left for what they're doing, creating extra alt accounts and posing as conservatives and talking about how they're not backing Trump anymore. They're walking away from Trump, and it's the left's operatives that are doing this. They've been exposed time and time again of doing this. All right, we got one last break. Just don't go away. We'll be right back in 2 minutes.
Come listen to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show. Live on select and exclusive Tuesday and Thursday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Rumble channel, SHR Media YouTube channel, X, Twitch, Spreaker, and wherever great conservative podcasts are found. BZ, your conservative Sherpa, guides you through the maelstrom of Democrat, leftist, and globalist lies, chaos, deceit, and betrayal. Raised as a free-range child with dirt, stains, mud, and freedom, BZ broadcasts from North Idaho, comfortably surrounded by actual normal people. Jump into our plush, sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent chat room on rumble.com. Click on live chat to join. Now, with 37% more umbrage and 19% more bulbosity than previous shows, featuring delicious Liberty additives for the best in late-night conservatarian talk radio. BZ reminds you that with great beard comes great responsibility. No chinchillas were harmed, embarrassed, fat-shamed, or the focus of any sarcasm whatsoever in the making of this ad.
Are you looking for a way to boldly express your faith and love for your country? And check out 7 Armors, the premier apparel company for patriotic men of God, where faith meets freedom in style. Our t-shirts are more than just clothing, they're statements. Bold, stylish, and meaningful. From timeless messages to modern designs, we've got something for every patriotic man of God. Wear your beliefs proudly with 7 Armors gear. Don't miss the chance to wear your faith and freedom on your sleeve. Visit 7armors.com today and join the movement. That's the number 7armors.com.
Hey, where do you go when you want real conversation and topics? That's right, you step to the edge. The Edge of Liberty is your home for talk radio the way it was meant to be. I'll be live every Monday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific, on the SHR Media Network, and we're simulcast on KLRN Radio. We're building something different, Aaron. We just want you to be a part of it. I'll see you on the edge.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And welcome back to the Reaver of Common Sense. I'm back. Told you I'd be back. SHR Media merch is here, and it's built for people who refuse to sit quietly while nonsense runs wild. From bold logo tees to gear that makes a statement without saying a word, this isn't just merch. It's a signal. You stand for free speech. You stand for accountability. You stand where truth lives. Wear it. Share it. Live it. Grab your SHR Media merch today and represent common sense wherever you go. Just go to shrmedia.com. Before you go any further, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and share this stream like your freedom depends on it, because it just might. Every click helps us punch through big tech censorship, drown out the media noise, and make sure common sense has a fighting chance. It seems that the 50% milestone has upset some liberals. They're upset that he's doing better than any other Republican. His numbers have gone up. Doesn't have majority, never said majority, but his numbers have gone up in the Black community, have gone up in the Latino community, and the minorities are voting for him, and the numbers have gone up for support. But like I said, I didn't say majority. I said the numbers have gone up. So let's see what's next. And I know the liberals are in the chat room freaking out over facts. It's not true. To dismantle the Department of Homeland Security. Think about the common sense here. We are in the middle of a massive push for border security and national sovereignty, and you have a sitting member of Congress calling to tear down the very department responsible for keeping the country border and internal systems secure. This isn't about reform. It isn't about humanity. It is about creating a vacuum. The DHS was created after 9/11 for a very specific reason: to stop the left hand from not knowing what the right hand was doing when it came to national threats. By calling to dismantle the whole department, they aren't just attacking immigration enforcement. They're attacking the entire infrastructure that monitors everything from cyber warfare to port security. It's a radical burn it all down philosophy that used to be a fringe talking point, but now they're saying it out loud on camera. They want the gates wide open and guards sent home. But as we've seen from those 50% approval ratings, the American people are moving in the exact opposite direction. And here's the strategic problem with that approach. Dismantling a department does not eliminate the underlying responsibility. Border control, counterterrorism, coordination, disaster response, cybersecurity defense. Those functions do not appear because a slogan trends on social media. They either get reassigned, fragmented, or weakened. History shows what happens when intelligence and enforcement agencies operate in silos. Communication breakdown, accountability blurs, response time slow. Got a hair tickling my nose. The entire reason DHS was structured as a centralized department was to prevent that fragmentation after catastrophic failures expose systematic gaps. There's also a political calculation at play. Calling for abolishment energizes a narrow activist base. Poquito. But it forces moderates to answer uncomfortable questions. What replaces it? Who takes over its mission? How do you secure ports, airports, digital infrastructure without a coordinated framework? Those are not rhetorical questions. They demand optional answers. Ultimately, this debate is not about one agency. It's about whether governance is driven by structural reform or symbolic dismantling. Voters may disagree on policy details, but most understand that national security requires systems, not slogans. And that is why proposals to tear down an entire department face far more resistance outside activist circle than inside them. All I hear from the left is just wah, 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 wah. My feelings are hurt. Wah, 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 wah. I got sand in my pussy. Wah, 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 wah. Oh. Now, one of the big stories of the week. Colbert really stepped in it this time. Big time did he step in it. Now we have to talk about the latest drama in corporate media bubble involving Stephen Colbert and CBS. If you watched his show, you heard him fuming, claiming he was barred from interviewing a Texas Democrat because of some mysterious FCC crackdown. But here's where the common sense and the receipts come in. CBS actually had to put out a statement to correct the record on their own, I'll use this very lightly, star. It turns out they didn't ban the interview. They simply gave him legal guidance on the FCC equal time rule. For those that don't know, if a broadcast network gives free airtime to one candidate, they have to offer it to the other. Colbert's team had a choice. They could do the interview, follow the law by being fair to the other candidate, or they could tuck the interview away on YouTube to avoid giving any Republicans a platform. Colbert chose the latter. He chose to hide his guest on the internet rather than follow a rule designed for fairness. And then he had the nerve to spin it as censorship. Even worse, his guest started claiming this was some kind of Trump administration coordination with corporate media. It's a perfect circle of nonsense. They followed a loophole to avoid being fair and blame the guy they hate for the fact that rules exist. It's not a crackdown. It's a temper tantrum because they can't use the public airways as a one-way megaphone anymore. Here's what makes this episode so revealing. The equal time rule is not new. It's been part of broadcast laws for decades. Networks have navigated it under Republican administrations, Democrat administrations, and everything in between, pretending it suddenly materialized as political retaliation insults the audience's intelligence. Moreover, this is a difference between cable and broadcast that often gets ignored. Broadcast networks use public airways. With that access comes regulatory responsibility. If you want the reach and prestige of legacy TV, you accept the guardrails that come with it. Instead of explaining that nuance to viewers, the narrative jumps straight to victimhood. That is a calculated move. Framing routine compliance as oppression energizes a base that already assumes bad faith. However, it also erodes credibility among viewers who understand how media law actually works. There is also a broader pattern here. When rules constrain one side political messaging, those rules get labeled as suppression. When the same rules benefit the preferred side, they are called protection of democracy. That selective outrage is what people are increasingly tuning out. And let's not ignore the strategic choice that was made. Moving the interview online avoided the equal time obligation. That was not censorship. That was a programming decision. Yet the rhetoric suggested something far more sinister because outrage generates clicks and segments. Ultimately, this controversy says less about the FCC and more about narrative control. When entertainers blur the line between comedy and political advocacy, They eventually collide with regulations designed for fairness. The rules did not change. The reaction did. And the distinction matters. Let's see, where are we at? I want to see what we got up. Let's see how many of these we can get to. Let's see. While the pundits on TV are trying to sell you a comeback story for the left, even CNN's own data is starting to betray the narrative. They've been looking at the board for the 2026 midterms, and that blue tsunami wave they keep promising, it's looking more like a puddle. CNN's latest analysis shows 26 governorships tilting towards Republican. That's a clear majority, while Democrats are struggling down near 20. And here's the kicker. When you add in the toss-up states, that data suggests that GOP is actually in a position to gain even more ground. This is what happens when on-the-ground reality meets in the studio fantasies. You can't spend years ignored by the coastal elites and not have it show up at the ballot box. From school boards to governors' mansions, the shift is happening at the state level where the policies actually hit your front door. The media can try to paint a national picture of chaos, but the map is telling a story of a country that is moving towards common sense, conservative leadership. What makes this particularly significant is that governorships shape policies in tangible ways. They control state budgets, National Guard deployment, educational standards, and energy policy. When that balance tilts, it changes how millions of Americans experience government in their daily lives. Midterm momentum often begins at a state level before it shows up in federal races. One party is consolidating power in governors' mansions across multiple regions. That creates a structural advantage heading into congressional contest. Organizations, fundraising networks, and voter turnout operations all flow downhill from that strength. So while the studio panels debate narratives, the electoral map is quietly hardening. A wave requires broad, measurable expansion. If the data instead show defensive posturing and limited pickup opportunities, then the storyline needs rewriting. Numbers do not care about spin. The board heading into 2026 suggests a far more competitive environment than the comeback rhetorical implies. Now, here's the thing. I know. I bet you they're screaming in chat, oh, you're going to lose, you're going to lose, you're going to lose. I've seen some of the polls. Yes, I have. Seen the data for the polls and how they're constructed. Senate, you can mark it. I think we're going to gain a couple seats. The Republicans are. The House is either going to stay the same or Republicans gain maybe a handful. Democrats don't have the numbers. And why I'm going this way is the rhetoric that's coming to the left from the left on the polls already. They're screaming about cheating. They're screaming about how Trump's doing this and Trump's doing that to take away the election. They're already making excuses about the 2026 election. They're already doing it. So if they thought they were going to win and they knew they were going to win, they wouldn't be out there running around making these excuses already and setting up so that when the Republicans, it stays the way it is, or they gain a little ground, they have their narrative already there. The wins, the couple small wins that the left have had have not been really that, they haven't worried me. Really, they haven't. It's still, how many more months do we have? And that's an eternity in politics. There's a lot that can change. But go ahead, keep talking a blue wave. Go ahead, keep talking it. Because I heard the same thing 2016. I heard the same thing 2024. I've heard it multiple times about this blue wave and never happens. Because the problem is when you start talking waves, and it goes to red wave too. When you talk red wave, people go, oh, I don't have to go out and vote. No need for me to go out and vote. No, don't need to. So stay home. So keep talking blue wave. Keep running into chat rooms and talking blue wave. The only thing you're doing is riling up the opposite side to get out and vote and disfranchising your own people. I don't need to go out and vote. So keep running your mouth about the blue wave. I like it. Now, I talked about Brian Cranstein or Cransenstein or whatever. And this next one is a classic example of why you should never trust everything you see on your feed. A prominent DNC supporter, Brian Cransenstein, just committed one of the most embarrassing reply guy fails in internet history. He accidentally posted a message saying, I'm one of Trump's biggest supporters on his main account, the one with the massive following that's used to bash the president daily. It was clearly intended for his secret burner account, which he uses to pose as a disgruntled MAGA supporter. Why does this matter? Because it exposes the MAGA Exodus for exactly what it is, a manufactured psyop. They are using sock puppet accounts to fake a mass walkaway. And we've heard it before. We've heard this story before. But it's this, they're talking about a fake mass walkaway from a movement to try and sow division before the midterms. It's the same old playbook. If you can't win the argument, fake the oppression. Fake the opposition. They want you to feel like you're alone and that the movement is shrieking. But common sense tells us that if they have to lie about people leaving, it's because nobody is actually walking out the door. And this is bigger than one embarrassing screenshot. Social media narratives are often amplified by repetition, not verification. When coordinated accounts echo the same storyline, it creates the illusion of momentum. However, illusion is not the same thing as a measurable political movement. If a genuine shift were happening, it would show up in voter registration trends, fundraising numbers, turnout data, polling crosstabs, not an anonymous avatar recycling the same talking points. Manufactured perception only works until someone forgets to switch accounts. Then the curtain gets pulled back and the strategy becomes obvious. And if you look at the numbers of fundraising, go ahead and look that up, people. But that's going to be the show. I didn't get all the segments in, but I got all but two. And we've covered a lot of ground today. We've seen the ratings collapse of the corporate giants, the desperate digital psyops designed to make you feel alone, the push to dismantle DHS, and now a coordinated effort in New Jersey to blacklist federal officers, tax detention facilities into oblivion, and criminalize jurisdictional conflict under a bill like A4300 and A4301. But if there's one thing you take away from tonight's show, let it be this. Reality is not a suggestion. You could spin the numbers, manufactured Exodus stories with fake accounts, target law enforcement based on political timelines, and dress up retaliation as reform. But at the end of the day, the truth remains. When you see a 50% approval rating in a world designed to hate this administration, that's not luck. That's the sound of American people weighing rhetorical against results and choosing common sense over chaos. And for the activists, the unions, and the politicians who thought political theater, whether in Florida classroom or New Jersey committee rooms, was more important than a public safety and constitutional order, the bill is coming due. Accountability is the only cure for the nonsense we've seen today. Because sooner or later, results outrun rhetoric. Sooner or later, voters compare what they were told would happen with what actually did. And when that comparison happens, noise fades and numbers speak. The spin cycle run 24 hours a day, but it cannot override lived experience. People know when their communities are safer, when their paychecks stretch further, and when leadership prioritizes order over outrage. That clarity is what changes election. It is what keeps common sense alive. That's all the time we have for tonight. Do me a favor. If you like what you heard, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and share the stream. If you don't have the corporate billions of CNN, we have you. I want to thank everybody that was in the chat room, everybody that watched. Whether you liked or hate me, I don't care. Thank you for being here. And if you want more, BZ's Berserk Bobcats Loon Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Edge of Liberty with Zach Edgeron Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mission Ready Men with Big E Jackson every Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, noon on the East Coast. And Reaver of Common Sense with me, Jersey Joe, every Monday and Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is where we'll leave it tonight. This is the Reaver of Common Sense on SHR Media, conservative media done right, where the truth lives and the nonsense dies screaming. See you next time.